and shoeless, but playing well.
How do you view your dad?
Tough love. Very, very tough love, or even if it is love.
John Daly once looked a two-time U.S. Open champion dead in the eyes and threatened to break his body into 6 pieces. And here's the wildest part. He meant every word. That wasn't some heat-of-the-moment trash talk that got walked back later. That was pure, unfiltered rage from a rookie who refused to play by golf's unwritten rules. And decades later, when asked about that same player, Daly didn't soften his stance. He doubled down, saying he'd tell him he hated him right in front of his wife, his kids, and anyone else listening. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane. That confrontation wasn't just about one bad day on a putting green. It was the spark that ignited one of golf's most explosive, chaotic, and unforgettable careers. And the 4 relationships that shaped John Daly's life reveal exactly why he became the sport's most loved and most hated rebel all at once. Let's start with who John Daly actually was before the chaos consumed everything. Born April 28, 1966, Daly didn't ease into the golf scene. He crashed into it like a freight train nobody saw coming. His 1991 PGA Championship win remains one of the greatest underdog stories in sports history. He was the 9th alternate, literally the last man in, someone who shouldn't have even been there. But he walked away with the trophy like it was written in the stars. With his booming drives that made crowds gasp, his working-class confidence, and his total disregard for golf's polished country club image, Daly stood out like nobody before him. Then came his second major, the 1995 Open Championship, sealing his name in golf history forever. But that's just the highlight reel. The real story is buried in a massive 456-page PGA Tour disciplinary file that tracked Daly's absolute chaos from 1991 to 2008. And what it showed was absolutely wild. The file listed 5 PGA Tour suspensions, 7 orders for counseling or rehab, 21 warnings for not giving his best effort, 11 citations for behavior unbecoming a professional, 6 rounds of probation, and nearly $100,000 in fines. His biggest fine, a whopping $20,000, came after he launched golf balls over the heads of spectators during a 1993 exhibition. The list didn't stop there. It mentioned him teeing off a ball perched on a beer can handed to him by Kid Rock, walking out of tournaments mid-round, missing tee times, and even showing up at a course opening shirtless and barefoot. Behind the fairways, Daly openly admitted to losing between $55 to $57 million over 15 years through gambling. And it all traces back to his early years on tour, to that explosive moment that defined everything. In 1991, during his rookie season at the Bell South Classic in Atlanta, Daly found himself in a tense moment that would set the tone for his entire relationship with golf's old guard. The putting green was jam-packed, only 6 holes for 146 players. As Daly worked on his stroke, another player's ball kept rolling toward him. Being polite, at least at first, he tapped it back again and again. But when he finally looked up, he locked eyes with Curtis Strange, a 2-time U.S. Open champion. According to Daly, Strange told him flat out, "You do not putt when a veteran is putting. You're a rookie. Step away and let me do my thing." Most rookies would have apologized and moved. That's how golf works. But Daly wasn't most rookies. He fired right back. "Really? Have you looked around? There's only 6 holes and about 50 guys on this putting green." And that's when things went from tense to legendary. Daly looked at Strange and said, "But okay, 2 things are going to happen. I'm a redneck from Arkansas and I'm going to keep putting at this hole. The second thing is I'm going to take your body and break it into 6 pieces so you'll never win a 3rd U.S. Open. So get out of my way." That moment said everything. Strange walked away, probably realizing he was dealing with someone who didn't respect the hierarchy or the unspoken codes that governed professional golf. And that tension never disappeared. When golfer Lee Westwood asked Daly decades later which player he'd least want to go on a golf trip with, Daly didn't hesitate. "That's the only golfer I've ever hated. Just full stop. Hate him. I'd say it in front of his wife, his family, everybody." You could feel how deep that grudge still ran even after 30 years. This clash wasn't just about golf etiquette. It was class warfare played out on the greens. Strange stood for golf's elite establishment. Daly stood for the working-class outsider. And that's what makes this feud so legendary. It never faded, because for Daly, Strange symbolized everything he'd been shut out from, the polished, privileged world that looked down on players like him. Daly's whole identity became built around being the outsider, and nowhere is that more obvious than in one of the strangest records in golf history. John Daly is the only golfer from the US or Europe to win 2 major championships and never be chosen for the Ryder Cup. A 2-time major winner, completely overlooked. The snub hit its peak in 2006. Just 2 years earlier, Daly had been voted PGA Tour Comeback Player of the Year. Fans thought he might finally earn a Ryder Cup pick. But US captain Tom Lehman chose Stuart Sink and Scott Verplank instead, saying he wanted guys who put the ball in play and who can chip and putt. To Daly, it was a direct shot at his grip it and rip it style. If you're hooked on this story, smash that like button and subscribe because Daly's battles get even more intense. Daly didn't hold back. He called out Lehman by name, pointing out that Lehman's team got absolutely crushed at the 2006 Ryder Cup. Europe dominated 18-1-2 to 9-1-2, one of the most lopsided defeats in history. For Daly, that loss was proof that the PGA establishment would rather lose with their safe players than win with a wild card like him. But while his feud with the establishment was deeply personal, his dynamic with Tiger Woods told a completely different story. It wasn't about hate, it was about philosophy. That clash hit its peak at the 2019 PGA Championship when Daly, battling osteoarthritis, received a medical exemption to use a golf cart. When reporters asked Tiger Woods what he thought, his answer became legendary. As far as JD taking a cart, well, I walked with a broken leg. It was a sharp reminder of the Tiger mindset, toughness above all else. Tiger's comment wasn't really about a golf cart. To Woods, it represented weakness. But to Daly, it felt cold and unfair. Daly later explained that Tiger didn't realize he was battling diabetes, joint problems, and hip issues. But here's where things take a surprising turn. The two actually made peace. Daly shared that Woods apologized to him over dinner at a PNC championship. Daly even revealed he was among the first to text Tiger after his devastating 2021 car accident. That moment showed what their relationship was really about: mutual respect between two men who represented totally different sides of golf. Now enters David Feherty, one of Daly's closest friends and one of the most interesting figures in his story. Their connection shows how Daly's chaos eventually became part of his charm. It all started back in 1990 when a young, unknown Daly edged out Feherty by just one stroke. After that win, Daly invited Feherty to a party at his hotel. By the time Feherty showed up, he joked that Daly had probably already spent his entire winner's check. That story sums up their friendship perfectly: chaotic, funny, and unforgettable. Feherty, a sharp-witted broadcaster with his own struggles, became Daly's most loyal and understanding voice in the media. On his show, he could joke about Daly being a train wreck while still celebrating his raw talent. What made this friendship truly powerful was how Feherty helped reshape Daly's public image. That 456-page disciplinary file painted him as a walking controversy. But through Feherty's lens, Daly's impulsive behavior came across as part of his charm. Feherty didn't excuse Daly's flaws, but he gave them context. Both men had battled addiction and mental health struggles. Both were outsiders who didn't fit golf's buttoned-up culture, and that bond turned real chaos into something fans could root for. John Daly didn't just play golf, he rewrote what it meant to be a legend. Wild yet gifted, fearless yet deeply flawed, adored by fans but shunned by golf's elite. In the end, Daly's legacy isn't only about trophies, it's about the battles he fought, the people who doubted him, and the few who truly understood him. Even at 59, he remains one of golf's most fascinating, unpredictable, and human stories ever told. And that threat to Curtis Strange, it still echoes through every fairway he walks.